Hi, I am Deborah R. Richardson of Debra R. Richardson LLC, and I work with you to help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes, and pay the right vendor. Now, this vendor master file tip of the week is handling vendor inquiries after distributing tax forms. Those 1099 miss. 1099 NEC, 1042's. Really, it could be any tax forms you're giving to your vendors because every time you distribute the forms, you do what? Get a lot of calls, maybe get some emails. So let's talk about how to handle those. Now, not only do you need to know how to handle those to efficiently to reduce penalties, but you also need to handle for those of you that sent out paper recipient statements because your vendors didn't opt in, give consent for electronic delivery. Then when you get those back, or if you get those back, you can't just sit on them. You also have to process those as well. And so I have a podcast that I am going to link in the show notes so that you can see how to deal with those paper forms coming back so that you reduce your penalties. And really, that's what we're looking at for the vendor inquiries is how to reduce your penalties that may be assessed by the IRS because of corrections. Because we know that the IRS bases the penalties for inaccurate statements to the vendors, inaccurate statements or tax reporting to the IRS. It's all based on dates. And so if you can get those vendor inquiries responded to, understood, researched as quickly as possible. If there is a correction that needs to be made, you can make it sooner than later. And so that includes the folks that didn't even receive a recipient statement as well, because that will incur a penalty. But again, if you have an efficient process, you can hopefully get those corrections in before they start increasing up that penalty chart timeline. So inquiries do affect your bottom line. So you do need to make sure you have an efficient process. That being said, what I would do recommend, and this is what I would did when I was a practitioner, I tracked and monitored responses for all the vendor inquiries, and that way we could identify or estimate what a penalty could be if it were assessed. And then that way, if you do receive a penalty, it is not something that is it is not something that's a surprise to your leadership. You have an estimated amount, and that's better than going from zero to whatever the penalty amount is, right? That way, your vendor, not your vendors, but your leadership and also your staff, right, knows what the corrections are, what the penalties could be, and you can learn from it and reduce those penalties the next year. The next thing is make sure you assign dedicated personnel to that process. You may need or they may need enhanced access to research and answer questions on payments in order to determine if corrections are required. But make sure that you are picking them strategically. You don't want to give anyone access to the vendor master file to what could be considered sensitive information. Tax ID is considered sensitive information since it can't have a social security number. So just make sure you are training or you are picking those folks strategically and that you provide training that is needed to do the research and make those corrections and adequately respond to the vendors on their inquiries. Now, speaking of responses, the last thing I have here is a recommendation that helped my team a lot is to create a document for the AP help desk. You may assign one or two persons or people to do the research, but you're going to have calls that come into your regular help desk. So have a separate document that has frequently asked questions and have it linked to the responses. So whether they're talking on the phone, they use it as a script, or if they're responding to an email, they can copy and paste it. And that way everyone's saying the same thing. And here's just an example. It's not a tax related question, but this is a table of contents that is clickable in a Word doc. And the way you make a table of contents clickable is you use or make a table of contents altogether is you will use styles, headings for your FAQs and then also the responses. So if you click on the where I have the arrows at, if you click on that first one, it'll take you directly to the response. Now, what I showed you is part of a template that I have for desktop procedures, and you can definitely get to see where that information is or what that is. It's actually included in the AVM, the Authentication Validation Management Toolkit. I should have put it on here, but if you go to my site, you will see them. So if you want more information on how to improve your vendor process, maybe get that toolkit or other downloads or resources, you can always visit my site at deborarrichardson.com for free tools to avoid fraud, regulatory fines, and bad vendor data. Now, if you would like over 100, I think it's 173 hours now of vendor process training for your vendor team, you can check out training. Deborarrichardson.com, and that's actually where the toolkit, where that desktop procedure that you saw is located. I'll actually put a link in the description so you can get straight to it. All right, so good luck and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified next Tuesday for the next Vendor Master File tip of the week.